Okay, today's daf is Masech the Sanhedrin, the very last daf, daf Kuf Yud Gimel, and we will begin from daf Kuf Yud Beis and Beis, and we're discussing, and for the rest of the Masechta, we're going to discuss this concept called Ir Anidachas. So one of the things of the Ir Anidachas is that after, let's say, you kill all the people, most of the people that did the Avodah Zarah, only those people that did Avodah Zarah, you kill them with the sword, and then the Torah tells you that all their possessions you should destroy, burn their possessions. So, but what happens if somebody who from the Ir Anidachas had a korban? Let's say he had a korban shlamim that was designated that he was going to bring up to the Beis Hamikdash. So Amama, we learned before, Hayaba Kachim, if he had something that belonged to for a korban, Kachim Mizbeach. If it's something that's brought on to the Mizbeach, let's say it was a korban chatas or whatever, or a korban oila, Yamusu, then what you do is you starve that animal and let it die. Okay, and that's it. There's nothing you can do. The Va'ama Yamusu. So the Gemara asks the question: why should you kill the animal and let it starve? Yiru achi avu. Let it have a shepherd around until it gets a blemish. Via machru, and then sell the animal. V'yiplum demeyam lindava, and then sell the animal, and the money you should donate it to the Beis Hamikdash, and they should buy other karbanos with it. Why do we kill the animal and starve it to death? Answers the Gemara, the answer is because their owner was killed because he did Avodah Zarah, right? He was part of Ir Anidachas. So Rabbi Yochanan Amar is very simple. Zevach Rishoim Te'eva. The money comes from a Russia, so God doesn't want to have any part of that money as a korban. So therefore, we get rid of the money. Rish Lakish Amar, Rav Shlaka says, really, it's Mom and Balamhu. It's money that belongs to the owner. Okay, so it's really money that belongs to the owner. It doesn't belong to the heaven. The hacha over here we're talking about b'kachim shechaya ba'achriyusan, and it's kachim that the man who said this should be a korban, if the animal gets lost or stolen, he promises to replace it. Rab Shimon Rab Shimon, it goes according to Rab Shimon, the Amma, Mom and Bailam, it's the owner's animal. So therefore, technically, it's not something that belongs to the Beis Hamikdash. It really belongs to the owner that was killed. And therefore, if it was the owner that was killed, then as part of it's like his car, it's like anything else that he has that you have to destroy. That's why we ask the animal to be killed, because it's not like a korban that he didn't take responsibility, that it only belongs to the Beis Hamikdash and it doesn't belong to his. It belongs to him. And if it belongs to the owner himself, the resident of the Ir Anidachas, that's why we destroy the animal. We starve it to death. Says the Gemara, if you're going to say that the opinion of the Tana is Rab Shimon, that says Kachim Shchai B'Achriyosan is Mama Bailam, Amid the Sefer Rab Shimon, he Reish La Rab Shimon. The Brisa quotes Rab Shimon next. So must be that the beginning of the Brisa is not Rab Shimon. So the Gemara says, you're right. B'Kachim Kalim. It's talking about a shlomim. Okay, a man donated a shlomim. And so therefore, the kachim kalam, if a guy makes a neder that he's bringing a shlamim, the animal belongs to the owner, and therefore you can never bring it as a korban because it's part of the items belonging to the owner that you have to destroy. Says the Gemara. So what's the story? Ava kachi kachim. But if it was like a kachi kachim, like a korban oila, that's holy. There's no part that's eaten by the owner. What would be the din? Yipadu. You would agree that since it's not possessions of the Ir Anidachas, it's possessions belonging to the Beis Hamikdash that happens to be in the Ir Anidachas. So in that case, you would agree that you would just redeem the animal, let it get a mum, redeem the animal, and buy another korban. Says the Gemara, added on the Seifa, but when the Seifa tries to contrast, Kache Bedek Abayis, the Brisa says, if it's Kache Bedek Abayis, if it was Kachim that somebody donated, let's say, a chair to the Beis Hamikdash, not brought on the Mizbeah. So then the Brisa says, it really belongs to the to the Beis Hamikdash. So what do you do with it? If it's in an Ir Nidachas, you redeem it, and you donate that money. You sell the chair to somebody, you redeem the money, and you give the money to the Beis Hamikdash. But you can make a differentiation by different types of karbonos. If it was kachim, you would redeem it, because kachim is belonging to the Beis Hamikdash. The kachim kalim you destroy. And says the Gemara, it's not so absolute. Kivan the ika chata shemesu ba'aleha, the lemisa azet, by a case that if a guy from an ir nidachas designated an animal for a carbon chatas, then you killed him, right? Because he did avodah zarah. So that case, you will not bring up yipadu and make the donation and you redeem the animal and give the animals money to the Beis Hamikdash, because once a carbon chatas that the owner dies, there's a halacha l'Moshe Sinai that says the lemisa azla, that the animal gets automatically killed. So it's not an absolute yipadu like psikale. So since it's not absolute, that's why the Brisa did not talk about such a case. So the Gemara says like this: Bishlama Rabbi Yochanan lo yamakar shlokish. Rabbi Yochanan did not want to say like Rish Lakish. The pasuk says zebach rishoim tayeva. That Rabbi Yochanan simply said that because it's once belonged to a Rasha, so simply whether it's kache kalim or whether it's kache kachem, doesn't matter, since it once belonged to a Rasha. So the Beis Hamikdash doesn't want that. Ela Rish Lakish, my time Rabbi Yochanan. Why didn't Rish Lakish say like Rabbi Yochanan that the Hashem doesn't like karbonos that originated from a Rasha? Amalach. So the Reb Shlacher will say, Ki amrinim zevach rishon teva. When do I say that God does not like the karbonos of a Rasha? If it's the animal itself, then God doesn't like it. But in our case, if you could take the animal, have it get a mum, a blemish, and then redeem the animal and buy another animal, Kivin the Ishtana, since you changed it out, Ishtani, it's changed out, so God wouldn't have a problem with that anymore. Especially if it was kachim that belonged to Hashem. So that's why Rish Lakish had to say that the Brisa was only talking about kachi kalim. If it's kachi kalim, then it's the owner's possessions, and once it's the owner's possessions, he's a resident of Ir Nidachas. You're killing the owner. You're destroying all his assets. Next Gemara says, Rab Shimon oimer behemtecha v'loy the Brisa said, Rab Shimon says behemtecha v'loy behemes b'chor umaisa, that your animal, the animals of the residents of the Ir Nidachas are destroyed, but not the animal that was a b'chor or a meiser animal, a meiser behema. What is a b'chor? A b'chor belongs to a kohen. So if there's a b'chor in the Ir Nidachas, then that's spared. You don't kill that animal. But my eskina, what are we talking about? If the animal, the bechor, doesn't have any blemish, so then shlal shemayim, of course, you're not going to kill it, because it's not their animal. It really is supposed to be brought under the mizbeach. So therefore, it's not part of the possessions of the Ir Nidachas. So I wouldn't eliminate that because of the pasuk behemtecha. I don't need that pasuk. Ella, we're talking about Baalei Mumen. If it has a blemish, now you know a bechor that has a blemish, or Maisa behema that has a blemish, really belong to the owner. The bechor belongs to the kohen. If the kohen has a bechor, someone gifted him a firstborn animal, and then it got a mum, so the bechor, the kohen could take it to his butcher and eat it. So if that's the case, so why would Rav Shimon say that you don't destroy it? Shlalaninu. It's really the possessions of the kohen. And if the kohen is part of an Ir Nidachas, so you have to destroy all his possessions. Ravina said like this, you're right, we're talking about a Baal Mum. Ravina says you're right. Even though it's now the possession of the kohen, because it has a Baal Mum, so he could go to his butcher and have it slaughtered. But originally, how did he get it? How did he get a hold of this animal? He got it because someone gifted him a bechor. So since it once was a bechor, and it was gifted because it was a holy animal. So therefore, it's not excluded. It's not considered his possessions, although he can do whatever he wants with it. It's still considered, according to this pasuk, possessions of heaven, and therefore, if the city is a Ir Nidachas, this animal will not be destroyed. Upaligi the Rabbi Shmuel. The way Ravina explained Rabbi Shimon is different than Rabbi Shmuel explained Rabbi Shimon. Amar Shmuel hakol karev hakol nivde. My comma hachi comma. This is what Shmuel explains Rabbi Shimon. Kol shekarev kishuhu tam b'nifte kishuhu balmum. Let's say you have a regular shlamim. When it's a regular carbon shlamim, you bring it up to the mizbeach. When it becomes a balmum, you can't bring it up to the mizbeach. You have to redeem it. So then mishlal imit. That is not burned from as part of Ir Nidachas, because that doesn't belong to the Ir Nidachas. It belongs to heaven. So that's not their possessions. But what happens? You have an animal that's a type of kachim. When it's a tam, you have to bring it up to the base of Migdash. When it gets a balmum, you don't have to bring another carbon to take its place. You allow the owner to keep it. Kagoin, what's the example? Bechor Meiser. So they're not considered shalal shemayim. They're not considered belonging to heaven. They're actually belonging to their owner. So how would you eliminate that wouldn't be destroyed? Behema nafka. That you learn from Behema. So according to Behema, from Behema it teaches you that although this is a semi-owner, the owner is really the kohen, and it's his personal possessions, but the Torah says this type of possessions you don't destroy, even if it's a tam. But if it was a Baal Mum, so then Shmuel would say that you will destroy it, as opposed to Ravina, who says that a Bechor, that's a Baal Mum, according to Rabbi Shimon, you will not destroy it. So some two machlokes how to understand Rabbi Shimon. Now we learned in the Mishnah, Trumas, the Brisa says, Trumas Yirakavu. Amar Chizda, if a kohen has Truma, so then you let it rot. You don't burn it. So Amar Chizda, Loishna Ela Trumas B'Yad Yisrael. If the Truma was in a Jew who's part of Ir Nedachas, he didn't give it to the kohen yet, then the Truma gets rotted. Aval Truma B'Yad Kohen. Truma already belongs to the kohen. Kevin the Mamaynahu, it's his money. It's like any possession, tisaref. So if it's in the hands of the kohen and he owns the truma, so that's his possession. So like you burn his suit, you'll burn his truma. But if it's in the hands of the Yisrael, so he didn't give it to the kohen yet, and it doesn't really belong to the Yisrael, he can't eat it. So then the din would be you let it rot. You don't do anything with it. Masav Rav Yosef asked the question. Ma'aseh sheinu v'kisvei kodesh. Yiganzu. The Brisa says that Ma'aseh Shenu, or let's say somebody owns a Sefer Torah, so Yiganzu. You're supposed to bury it. You don't do anything with it, but you bury it in the Irani Dachas. Well, Ma'aseh Sheni Biyad Yisrael, Ma'aseh Sheni that's in the Jewish hand is Ketruma Biyad Kohendom. It's like Ketruma in the hands of the Kohen. And you just told me Truma Biyad Kohen is your money. You burn it, but V'Katanu. Yiganzu, but we say you don't burn it, but you don't burn it, but you don't want to be mezalzel in it because you don't want to burn it, so you hide it. So the question is, why, if truma biyad kohen, would you burn? So you have to label Rabbi Chizda. Rabbi Chizda loishnam ela betruma biyad kohen. We're only talking about truma biyad kohen. If the truma is in the hands of the kohen, so then it's the kohen's possessions. You let it rot. Aval truma biyad Yisrael. If the truma is in Yad Yisrael, so then he didn't give it to any kohen, so it belongs to nobody yet because it's in the Jewish hand and he can't eat it. He's supposed to give it to somebody else. So then we allow him to save it. The Jew himself, is going to be killed, or his possessions are going to be destroyed, but this is not his possession. So what do we suggest for him to do is tinasin l'kohen shabir acheres. We ask him to give it to a kohen that lives in another city. Tanan Hasan, we learned it over there. Isa shamayis sheni petur menachala divrei Meya v'chachamim mechayvim. A dough that's made of ma'aseh sheni is exempt from challah. These are the words of Rav Meir. V'chachamim mechayvim. Rav Chachamim said you are obligated to give challah. Now, Amar Chizda Machlekes b'Ma'aser Sheni b'Yerushalayim. Machlekes if somebody made a dough in Yerushalayim for Ma'aser Sheni. The Rab Meir Savar, Rab Meir holds Ma'aser Sheni Mammon Gavayahu. Ma'aser Sheni really belongs to God, and therefore it's exempt from giving challah to the kohen. Rabbanim Savri Mammon Hediru. Rabbanan hold that it's your money. You can do whatever you want with it. So if you had bought a dough and made a dough in Yerushalayim, you have to give challah like it was your own personal possessions. But if outside Yerushalayim, so you didn't bring it to Yerushalayim yet, it's Mammon Gavaya, Dibri Hakol, Potter. Everybody would agree you're exempt from challah. So that's how Reb Chizda explained this machlekes of a dough of Ma'aser Sheni. That if you did not yet bring it up to Yerushalayim and you made a dough from the wheat that you grew, so then you would not be obligated to give challah. Masav Rav Yosef asked, Ma'aser Sheni v'kisvei kodesh yiganzu. We learned it on Mishnah, Brisa, that Ma'aser Sheni, in the Mishnah actually, that the Ma'aser Sheni that a person has of Ir and Dachas, yiganzu should be hidden, right? You're supposed to burn it, but you hidden. Now now it's obvious from here that it's obvious from here that the fact that we're asking you not to save it, it's because we consider it mammon hedyet. It belongs to you. So b'may askinim, what are we talking about over here? If you actually brought it up to Yerushalayim, and Yerushalayim became a year in Dachas, and that's why you have to destroy it. Mihava ir nidachas. Can Jerusalem ever become an ir nidachas? But Tanya, we learned in the Brisa, Asar devarim never be Yerushalayim. V'zu achas mehem einin nasa ir nidachas. Yerushalayim can never become an ir nidachas because Yerushalayim was divided into two shvatim, Yehuda and Binyamin, and only a city that belongs to one shevet becomes an ir nidachas. Ve'ela, what do we say over here? Be'ir acheres. It's actually from another city. So that other city became Ir Nidachas, but their dough happens to be in Jerusalem. Vaskula Gavon, you brought it here. But then why would you have to destroy that dough? You get rid of it. Haklatu mechitzas. In the mechitzas, once you bring a dough into Yerushalayim, you can't take it out. And the only time items that are outside of an Ir Nidachas city are burnt is if you could bring it back into the city. But once Ma'aser Sheni comes beyond the walls of Yerushalayim, you can't bring it back to the Ir Nidachas. There's no return. So therefore, why would the Brisa say Yiganzu? Elalab, where is this dough? And where's this Ma'aser Sheni do? Big Vulin. Exactly in the Ir Nidachas. You didn't bring it up to Jerusalem. And what does the Brisa say? Viktani Yiganzu. And the Brisa says that the Mishnah says, you hide it, you get rid of it, you have to destroy it. So it must be Mammon Hedyet. And you just told me, Big Vulin, a dough that you didn't bring up of Ma'aser Sheni, you didn't bring up to Jerusalem is Mammon Gavaya. Really, we're talking about the Acheres Vasku Legava. Here we're talking about Shenitma. And really, you brought it into Yerushalayim, and it became Tameh. So therefore, it's not Mammon Gavaya, it's Mammon Hedyet because you can't eat it. Says the Gemara of Lifrikate, but why don't you redeem it? If Ma'aser Sheni dough became Tameh, you can redeem it. That you could redeem something if you can't eat it. So why can't you redeem it and eat it? And therefore, if you could do that, then it should be like Mammon Gavaya. It could be Mammon Gavaya. So the Gemara says, here we're talking about Melakuach, that it's you can't redeem it anymore. So you can't redeem it anymore. So therefore, that's it. Says the Gemara, that's why Yiganzu. You have to get rid of it. So Frank Gemara, we go to Kufya Gimel Amar Aleph. Lifkerpei, let's redeem it. That's now we learned in the Mishnah. Halakuah b'kesef ma'aser shenitma yipadeh. Anything that you buy from kesef ma'aser that became Tameh, yipadeh, could be redeemed. So you still have this option to redeem something. And so the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda Dama Yikava. Rabbi Yehuda says you bury it. That means Rabbi Yehuda says that if you took money, let's say money of Ma'aser Sheni, and then came up and bought a dough with it. So once you bought a dough and that became Tameh, you cannot redeem it anymore. You have to bury it. And that's why Ma'aser Sheni you bury. So the Gemara says, if that's the case, by iri dachas, if we're talking about a tamei digado, and because you can't eat it, the Mishnah says bury it. So who cares if the dough is part of ir nidachas, even if it wasn't ir nidachas? I feel the alma, even if it's a regular dough, not part of ir nidachas, it's tamei. You can't eat it, you can't redeem it, you should bury it. So that wouldn't make sense to learn pshat like that. We're talking about batar. It's a tahar digado, and therefore. But l'chayre, if it's a Torah digado belonging to an ir nidachas, but it's in Jerusalem, you can't bring it back to the ir nidachas. Yes, you can. It's going to nafa mechitza suchudurava. It's talking about the walls of Jerusalem fell down, and therefore you can actually bring the dough back to the ir nidachas to be destroyed. The amarava mechitza lechal daraisa likleit rabbanim. The mechitza for the mechitza that doesn't allow you to take Ma'aser Sheni outside of Yerushalayim is only if the wall's there. And that's only a din de Rabbanim. When the Rabbanim say that you can't bring a Ma'aser Sheni food outside Yerushalayim, if the mechitza is still standing. If the mechitza is not standing, you can't. There's no problem taking it out. So again, this dough that the Gemara said that you have to bury it and burn it really belonged to Ir and Idachas. And the fact that it's in Jerusalem didn't save it, because we're talking about a case where Jerusalem walls fell down. And because of that, you're allowed to take this Ma'aser Sheni back to the Ir and Idachas to get burned. Now we'll learn one more thing. If there was, let's say you're burning all the items in the city. If somebody had like a holy book, then you don't burn it, you bury it. Masnisan like Reb Lazar. Our Mishnah does not go like Reb Lazar. It's mashma that an ir nidachas could be considered an ir nidachas, even though you're going to be burying and not burning the holy books. But Reb Lazar holds a new shita. The Tanya we learned in the Brisa, and this is a fascinating opinion. Reb Lazar says, "Kol ir sheyesh ba'afilu mezuzah achas." If a city has one mezuzah, there's one from person in the city. Ein hanasa ir nidachas does not become an ir nidachas. Shenama, because the pasuk says, "V'sarafta be'esh eser ir." You have to burn the city down. That's kol shalala kol, and all its possessions have to be destroyed. If there's a mezuzah in the city that belongs to somebody, so you can't burn it. You're not allowed to burn it. The pasuk says, you're not allowed to burn a mezuzah. So therefore, since you can't burn the mezuzah, you can't be the kind the pasuk kol shalala, so it cannot be considered an ir nidachas. And ir nidachas is where everybody is not from, and most of the city is doing avodah zarah. Fascinating. Rab Shimon Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu. The bottom line is the pasuk says that there's a machlokes between Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi says when you destroy a irandachas, you can't even leave it as a park. You can't rebuild it as a park. Rabbi Kiva says you don't build it as a city, but you can rebuild it as a park. So Rabbi Kiva is more lenient. So what's the machlokes all about? So the Gemara says everybody holds of Rabavim. We're arguing the following: the Torah tells you loy sibone oid, don't rebuild it again. What did Rabbi Yossi says? Don't rebuild it completely. Don't ever try to even make a park out of it. Right, like Starrett City, you can't rebuild it. Nothing. It has to be left alone. That's what Rabbi Yossi holds. Rabbi Kiva holds Loisi Bara'ai. Don't rebuild it the way it was as a city, but you can rebuild it as a park. Eini nivdes avanasis li garnes and pabrason. Tanarabban, the rabbis taught. Hoya ba ilanis telushas. If the ir nidachas has cut down trees, asurin, you have to burn them. Muchubarim, but if they're standing trees, mutarim, they're connected. Why? They're mutar. Why? Because the Torah says only burn the movable possessions, but unmovable possessions, the things that you need to chop down first and then bring it to the middle of the city to be burned, the Torah did not require that. So ir nidachas, you will not, chop down trees. Shall ir acheres, but another city, sometimes in Tanakh, you'll see that there was another city that you had to totally raise the town, city, plus chop the trees down. My iri acheres, which city was that? That in Tanakh we find that you have to get rid of the whole city. The city of Yerichai. The Ksiv Hoyso Ir Chel Hashem. Vayaz by Yeshua so the Torah tells you, the Tanakh tells you that Yeshua said that the entire city should be burnt down, Yericho. And if you learn Tanakh, not only did they, burn the movable items and the movable chopped down trees, but they chopped down trees that were connected from the ground and totally raised the whole city of Yericho. And now we talk about Yericho and Achav, and then we end the Masechta. There's a curse to the person of Hashem. Whoever will rebuild a city called Yericho, if he builds the city, says Yeshua, I'm going to make sure that his oldest son will die as soon as he puts the foundation of the city. And his youngest son will be dead by the time he finishes the city. So that's a big curse that Yeshua gave. Tanya, we learned in the Brisa, the idea is not to even rebuild the city of Yericho, plus rebuild another city and call it Yericho. Very interesting. You're now going to call something Jericho. Lo Yericho al Shema Iracheres. You can't even rebuild Yericho, the original Yericho, and call it something else. You can't, the original spot where Yericho was, you can't rebuild that place in Israel and call it New York. Now it's also asur. You can't build another city and call it Yericho. Now the Ksiv, the pasuk says, Yechiel, this guy named Yechiel, who lived in the time of Achav, lived in the north of Israel, totally in a different place. He built a city in the north of Israel. He called it Yericho. And the pasuk says, "Ba'avirim b'chore Yizda." When he put the foundation of the city, his Aviram son died. Uvzgiv tzira hitzav delaseh, and his Skiv is the name of his youngest son. Skiv died when he finished the city. So again, he did a big avera. Tanya, we learned in the Brisa, Ba'avirim b'chore Rasha loy hayolay leilmoid b'skiv tzira hayolay leilmoid, that his two children were Roshoyim, and he should have learned that he couldn't have learned because the first son died. Maybe he could have thought it was by accident. But by the time his youngest son died, this guy Chiel should have stopped. So the Gemara first understands, what are you calling the children of Chiel Yerushalayim? Aviram Skiv my Ovid. What did they do? Their father was doing something wrong. So why are you calling them Roshoim? Aviram B'chayr Rasha. This is what we meant to say. That's what you say. In other words, the first Bechar that died, Chiel could have given it up by chance. His children were okay, but the fact that his oldest son died, he should have, maybe we don't fault him for not stopping. But when his youngest son died, he should have stopped. And what we're trying to say, he had more than two children. Any day should give tzirah. My time life give tzirah. As he was building this place he called it Yericho, one by one, all his children died. So Aviram died first, and then the second one, the third one, the fourth one. By the time he finished the city, his youngest son died, and he still didn't stop. So now the Gemara tells us King Achav. Okay, we're going to stop. We're going to almost finish in like 3 minutes, 3-4 minutes. Achav Shushbina Hava. Achav, the King Achav, the wicked King Achav, was coming to visit this Chiel and Menachem Avel. They went to visit him in his Avelis house, and Eliyahu Navi also joined. Now, King Achav is a Russia. Yosef and Kama, they're sitting by the Shiva, and Achav said, Dilma Yeshua Achav said, I think I know why your sons died, because you're building the city and you're calling it Yericho, and Yeshua said, don't build another city and name it Yericho. Amalei Eliyahu en. So Eliyahu agreed with King Achav, because every now and then a piece of wisdom comes out from the wicked King Achav. Amalei. So Achav says, but it doesn't make sense. Because why should Yeshua's curse have any effectiveness? Hashta levatza de Moshe like kamikaima. The curse of Moshe Rabbeinu is not effective, so Yeshua's curse is also not going to be effective. How do you know Moshe's curse was not effective? Moshe said in the Krishma, Moshe said that if you can do avodah zarah, it's not going to rain. Bahu Gabra Achav, he said about himself, wherever there's a high place in the north, I put up avodah zaros there. V'lo shavek limit the meiz mizgalei, and the rain has not stopped coming. In fact, you can't even visit the avodah zarah because it's raining so abundantly. So Moshe Rabbeinu's curse has no effect. Levatzad Yeshua Talmida Mekaima. So Yeshua's a curse should have any effectiveness. The Yad, from that point, Eliyahu got so angry and he said, God, give me the key of the rain. So God gave him the key to rain. And there are three keys that God holds. And one of them is the key of the rain. So now Eliyahu is now holding on to the key of rain, the keys. And Eliyahu said it's not going to rain anymore. Not only that, Eliyahu ran away. And the pasuk says that he ran away to a place called V'nistato b'nachal Kris, and he stayed in this like desolate place called Nachal Kris, this valley. And every day ravens would bring Eliyahu Navi first of food, so and meat to eat. In other words, he was running away from Achav because Achav knew that Eliyahu now has the keys to rain, and he stopped rain coming from the north. And now Achav has to find Eliyahu, and Eliyahu is hiding in a place called Nachal Kris, so that Achav can't find him. So now the question is, Mehecha, where did the ravens bring food from to Eliyahu? From the butcher place of Achav. Achav had meat stored, so the ravens would steal some meat from Achav and bring it to Eliyahu. Then God still didn't like that. God wanted to bring rain. The whole river dried up. God saw that there's too much pain in the world. God needs to bring rain. So somehow God convinced Eliyahu, go to this lady, and she will give you a little bit to eat. And Eliyahu got to eat by her house, and then the son of this lady got sick and died, and she blamed Eliyahu for coming to the house and killing her son. And so Eliyahu wanted to be Mechaya Mason. So the pasuk says that he actually brought Chias Mason. He made this kid come back alive. But Boya Rachme last basically I killed the Chias Mason. But in order to do that, he needed God to give him another key, the key to bring people back to the dead, back to life. Amrulay, so they told him from heaven to Eliyahu Navi, Shalach Shmachtecha. God has three keys. That God never gives to anybody. Shel Chaya, for a woman to give birth, Vishal Geshaman, the key of rain, Vishal Chias Amesim, and the key to make somebody dead come alive. So I'm going to give you the key of rain, and I already gave you the key of the rain. Now I'm going to give you the key of Chias Amesim. Yomim Shtaim B'Yad Talmud. People will say the student Eliyahu has two keys, V'Achas B'Yad Rav, and one key is by God, the master. Isahah, give me back the key of rain, V'Shakal Hay, and I'll give you the key of Chias Amesim. So that's what happened. God got the key back of rain, and God made it rain. God said, I'm giving the rain back. Eliyahu is like a guy, a guy that closed off his gate or his safe and lost the key. Same thing. Eliyahu closed the gate of rain, and he lost the keys of grain, so the rain, and God, so to speak, found it back and made the rain come. Darish Rabbi Yossi bar Tzibori Abba Eliyahu. Rabbi Yossi bar Tzibori, we go to Amud Beis and we're finishing. Rabbi Yossi bar Eliyahu said about Eliyahu, Kapter, Abba Eliyahu, my father Eliyahu Navi Kaptam was an angry person. In Tanakh, he is always angry. So Rabbi Navi used to always visit Rabbi Yossi, right? Rabbi Yossi B'Tzipori. So now he called him an angry person. So Eliyahu did not come visit Rabbi Yossi. So he asked him, why didn't you come till now? I mean, you always come to visit me. So Eliyahu told Rabbi Yossi, Captain Karisali, you're announcing in shul that I'm an angry person. That's why I don't want to come. Because you saw I didn't bring the rain during Achav's time. The fact that you didn't come visit me, the carpet, because you're angry at me, that's proof that you're just generally an angry person. Funny Gemara. So we the Mishnah ends off. Whenever there are Rashaim in the world, God is angry at the world. Man Rashaim. What is a Rasha that makes God universally angry at society? If there are people who are stealing, stealing is something God can't understand. So these Rishoim not only steal and affect, themselves, they're actually doing something wrong to the entire world, that God's angry at the entire world. Rasha ba'al ha'olam, charein ba'al ha'olam. Shnema b'voy Rasha ba gambuz v'im kolin cherpa. Then God is angry. When a Rasha comes to this world, I guess when he's born, God, it is an anger in the world. Rasha avim min ha'olam, but once the Rasha is lost from the world, he's killed, taiva ba'al ha'olam, then good things happen. Shnema b'avoid Rishaim rina. When the Rishaim leave, there's joy in the world and good things. It's a bull market. Tzaddik nifter ma'olam, but when a tzaddik leaves this world, ra ba'olam, then bad things happen to the world. Shnema ketzaddik oved ve'in ish samalev v'anshei chesed nesafim be'im mevin ki mipnei hara nesav tzaddik. God takes the tzaddik back upstairs because something bad is about to happen to the world. But tzaddik ba'olam, when a tzaddik is born into the world, taiva ba'olam, good things happen to the world. Shnema, the pasuk says, when Noach was born, somehow when Noach was born, the bad stopped. In fact, God brought the ma'abel and was no more angry at the world. And once God's not angry, then good things happen to the world. Sanhedrin, Baruch Hashem, with Hashem's help, we were able to finish the Masechta Sanhedrin and say the Siyum and take a drink of wine. Mazel tov.